She said good morning to the person who was about to kill her. Think about that for a moment. A 29-year-old woman is standing in her own driveway at sunrise, arranging tables for a garage sale, and a figure walks toward her from a dark pickup truck. Liz Barraza does what she always does when she meets someone. She greets them. 8 seconds later, she is on the ground with 4 bullets in her body. The whole thing is captured on a doorbell camera. The approach, the conversation, the gunfire, the killer running back to their truck. The audio records Liz calling out for help as she bleeds on the concrete. That footage has been watched by millions of people for over 6 years. The shooter has never been identified. And here is the detail that has kept investigators awake. The killer pulled into the neighborhood at 6:47 that morning. Liz's husband drove away to work at 6:48, 1 minute apart. So who was watching and how did they know? If you're new to this channel, subscribe now and turn on notifications. We cover cases like this every single night. Now, let us talk about who Liz Barraza really was, because the answer to why this happened might be hiding in the life she lived. Elizabeth Marie Newell was born on June 26, 1989, in Elk Grove Village, Illinois, a suburb northwest of Chicago. Her parents, Robert and Rosemary Newell, called her Liz from the beginning. She had one older brother, also named Robert. When Liz was still young, the family moved several times before eventually settling in the Houston area of Texas. She grew up in the kind of household where people described her the same way: kind, giving, happy, and completely incapable of holding a grudge. Liz graduated from Klein Collins High School in 2008, just north of Houston. She started her college career at Stephen F. Austin State University in Nacogdoches before transferring to Sam Houston State University in Huntsville, where she pursued a degree in psychology. It was there, somewhere between lectures and campus life, that she met a young man named Sergio Barraza. Their connection was instant. They bonded over the same things that would come to define their relationship for the rest of their time together: a shared sense of humor, a love of fantasy, and an obsessive devotion to 2 fictional universes, Star Wars and Harry Potter. For many couples, these would be casual interests. For Liz and Sergio, they became a way of life. After graduating in 2012, Liz entered the workforce, eventually landing a position as a data reporter at the Rosen Group. On February 1st, 2014, she and Sergio got married. They settled into a modest home on Cedar Walk Drive in the Princeton Place subdivision of Tomball, Texas, a quiet suburban community about 40 minutes northwest of downtown Houston. Their house was not flashy, neither were they. But what filled their life was something richer than material wealth. Together, Liz and Sergio became officially inducted members of the 501st Legion, an international costuming organization made up of Star Wars fans who build screen-accurate replicas of villainous characters and use them for charity work. The group, also known informally as Vader's Fist, has over 14,000 active members across 60 countries. Its mission is to celebrate the Star Wars universe while giving back to local communities through costumed volunteer appearances at hospitals, fundraisers, and community events. Liz did not treat this as a casual hobby. She served as the local chapter's events coordinator. She built her own stormtrooper costume and wore it to visit sick children at Memorial Hermann Hospital in Houston, the very same hospital where she would later be taken after being shot. She and Sergio attended Comic-Con and MegaCon together, dressed as characters they had spent weeks constructing by hand. They went to Renaissance festivals, they shared poems, they made matching costumes. Peter Mayhew, the actor who played Chewbacca in the original Star Wars films, and later set up an endowment in Liz's name through his Make-A-Wish Foundation after her death. The 501st Legion named her an Eternal Legionnaire, a title reserved for members who die. Her father, Bob Newell, became an honorary member of the organization in her memory and continues her charity work to this day. That is the woman who was shot in her driveway. She was not wealthy. She was not involved in drugs. She had no criminal record, no known enemies, and no history of conflict with anyone. Investigators who later combed through her phone, her emails, her social media, and her financial records found nothing, no affairs, no threats, no debts, no reason at all for someone to want her dead. And yet someone did. January 25th, 2019 was a Friday. It was supposed to be a good day, and Liz and Sergio were 2 days away from leaving on a trip to Orlando, Florida, to celebrate their 5th wedding anniversary. They had booked their tickets. Liz had packed her suitcase. She had made a special pair of Harry Potter-themed shoes for the trip. Their plan was to visit the wizarding world of Harry Potter at Universal Studios, the kind of destination that, for a couple like them, was not just a vacation but a pilgrimage. To earn a little extra spending money for the trip, they had organized a last-minute garage sale. They set up 2 signs the night before, one at the entrance to their neighborhood and one down the road at a nearby intersection. The sale was not widely advertised. According to Sergio, only a handful of people knew about it. Some of Liz's co-workers, her parents, and his mother. The morning was cold and dark. Liz woke up early. Sometime just after 6 in the morning, she drove to a nearby Starbucks to pick up coffee. A doorbell camera captured her returning to the house at approximately 6:16 a.m., making a silly face at the camera as she walked inside. It was a small, unconscious moment of joy, the kind of thing a person does when they feel safe, when they feel at home, when they have no reason to believe anyone is watching. By about 6:17 a.m., Liz and Sergio were outside, setting up tables and arranging items on the driveway. Sergio needed to leave for work. He had an early shift. At approximately 6:47 a.m., he kissed Liz goodbye, told her he loved her, got into his vehicle, and drove away. He would later tell reporters that he was grateful those were the last words he said to her. At 6:48 a.m., 1 minute after Sergio's vehicle left, a dark-colored pickup truck entered the neighborhood. Surveillance cameras from multiple homes in the area captured the vehicle's movements. The truck drove slowly down Cedar Walk Drive, turned around, and parked in front of the Barraza home. At approximately 6:52 a.m., a figure exited the truck and began walking up the driveway toward Liz. Tell us in the comments where you are watching from tonight. And if you have a theory about what happened here, share it, because over 6 years of investigation have not produced a single arrest. What happened next was captured on a neighbor's surveillance camera and the Barraza's own Ring doorbell camera. The footage is grainy but unmistakable. It shows a person walking toward Liz with a deliberate pace, and the individual appears to be wearing some kind of disguise, possibly a wig, possibly a costume or robe. Investigators have never been able to determine with certainty whether the person is male or female. The clothing obscures their build, the disguise obscures their face. The audio from the doorbell camera picks up Liz's voice. She says something, likely a greeting. Investigators believe she said good morning, the kind of thing you say to a stranger approaching your garage sale at dawn. She did not run. She did not scream. She did not appear to recognize the person as a threat. 8 seconds after the figure reached Liz, gunfire erupted. 3 shots hit her in rapid succession. All struck her upper body, the torso, neck, and head area. Liz collapsed to the ground. The shooter stood over her and fired a fourth shot at close range, and then the figure turned and ran back to the truck. The doorbell audio captured the aftermath. Liz, still alive, calling out. Neighbors heard the gunshots. 3 separate 911 calls were made within minutes. The dark pickup truck sped away from the scene, heading out of the neighborhood. But what happened next made the crime even more chilling. According to investigators, the truck circled back and drove past the Barraza home again, apparently to confirm that Liz was down. Then it left for good. By 6:58 a.m., first responders were on the scene. When EMS arrived, Liz was in critical condition. They called for life flight, the Memorial Hermann Critical Care Air Transport Unit, and she was airlifted to Memorial Hermann Hospital, the same hospital where she had once walked the hallways in a stormtrooper costume, visiting sick children. Liz Barraza died in that hospital on Saturday, January the 26th, 2019. She was 29 years old. She survived for roughly 36 hours after the shooting. During that time, family and friends, including members of the 501st Legion, stood vigil by her bedside, taking turns holding her hand so she would never be alone. Her husband, Sergio, would later say, "I had to trade our 5th anniversary for her funeral." The investigation began immediately. Harris County Sheriff's Office. Homicide investigators arrived at the scene and began reconstructing the timeline. From the outset, certain details pointed in a clear direction. Nothing had been stolen. The cash box Liz had set out for the garage sale, containing approximately $100, was left untouched. Her personal belongings were undisturbed. This was not a robbery, and the killer had used a revolver. Investigators determined this based on the absence of shell casings at the scene. Revolvers retain their spent casings inside the cylinder, unlike semi-automatic pistols that eject them. This was significant. It meant the killer had deliberately chosen a weapon that would leave minimal physical evidence behind. The shooter had fired with one hand and showed no visible struggle with recoil, suggesting experience with firearms. The disguise, the weapon choice, the timing, the return pass, all of it indicated planning. This was not random. This was, in the words of one investigator, a direct hit. And there was one more detail that stuck with everyone who examined the footage. The black truck had been captured on cameras, not just on the morning of the shooting, but the night before. Surveillance footage showed the same vehicle driving slowly through the neighborhood at approximately 2 a.m. on January 25th, cruising past the Barraza home hours before the garage sale was even set up. The killer had been scouting. Sergeant Michael Ritchie of the Harris County Sheriff's Office, the lead homicide investigator who has worked the case since the beginning, would later describe it in blunt terms. He compared it to something out of a television crime drama. A calculated hit, a disguised shooter, a revolver that leaves no casings, and a timing window so narrow it was almost surgical. The truck pulling in barely a minute after the husband drove away. Someone knew Sergio's schedule. Someone knew Liz would be alone. The first person investigators looked at was the husband. That is standard procedure in any homicide. And in this case, there were surface-level details that invited scrutiny. Sergio had a life insurance policy on Liz. According to the terms, in the event of a murder, the payout doubled to $500,000. He had left the house just 1 minute before the killer arrived. And on the internet, where anonymous speculation spreads faster than verified information, a vocal community of amateur sleuths quickly decided he was guilty. But the evidence told a different story. Sergio had been at work when the shooting occurred. His alibi was confirmed. He voluntarily gave investigators full access to his phone, his computers, his finances, and his home. A thorough examination of the couple's digital footprint revealed no evidence of marital problems, no affairs, no financial distress, and no communications that suggested conflict of any kind. Sergio took a polygraph test and passed. He took additional polygraph tests over the following months and passed every one. He had not collected the life insurance money. He cooperated with investigators at every turn, providing them with the doorbell camera footage on the day of the murder. He told detectives everything he could about who knew about the garage sale, about their routines, about their friends and acquaintances. He later told reporters that he was aware the public suspected him. He understood the suspicion, but he maintained his innocence with a consistency that investigators found credible. Approximately a year and a half after Liz's death, Sergio met a woman named Amber who had recently lost her sister. They bonded over shared grief and eventually married. This, 82, fueled online speculation, but Sergio addressed it directly. He said Liz would not have wanted him to stop living. He said he still loved her. Sergio was not the only family member investigators examined. He himself raised a possibility that detectives pursued. His father, Oscar Barraza Sr., had been having multiple extramarital affairs and was in financial trouble. Sergio told investigators that his father's last paycheck had bounced and that Liz had been upset about it and had confronted Oscar. The theory was that Oscar may have learned about the insurance policy and decided to eliminate his daughter-in-law to resolve his financial problems. Investigators questioned Oscar. He admitted to the affairs and explained the bounced check as a timing issue with a client payment. His bank records and phone records were examined, and nothing tied him to the murder. He took a polygraph test and passed. With the two most logical suspects cleared, the investigation widened. Detectives looked into Liz's co-workers at the Rosen Group. They looked into members of the 501st Legion. They examined every person in Liz and Sergio's orbit. No viable leads emerged. The FBI and the Texas Rangers were brought into the case. Geofencing technology was employed to determine which cell phones were in the area at the time of the shooting. Additional subpoenas were pursued. Every tool available to modern law enforcement was deployed, and still nothing. The case haunted everyone who touched it. Sergeant Ritchie later told NBC that he had expected the case to be solved almost immediately. He thought the video footage alone, a shooter captured on multiple cameras, a distinctive truck identified down to the trim level, would crack it wide open. Instead, the investigation ran into a wall that no one anticipated. The killer had been meticulous. They had left no DNA, no fingerprints, no shell casings, no trace of their identity. The disguise defeated every attempt at facial recognition. The truck, despite being identified with extraordinary specificity, could not be traced to a registered owner. What made it worse was the knowledge that the footage existed. In most unsolved homicides, the absence of evidence is the problem. In this case, the evidence was right there, time-stamped, recorded from multiple angles, preserved in high enough quality to see the shooter walk up, fire, and flee. And it still was not enough. The black Nissan Frontier remains the best lead in the case. Investigators identified the suspect's vehicle as a dark-colored 2013 or newer Nissan Frontier Pro 4X Crew cab truck. The Pro 4X designation is important. It is a specific trim level that comes with distinct badging and features. Detectives believe the truck may have a Pro 4X decal attached to its body. The vehicle was captured on multiple cameras throughout the neighborhood on both the night before and the morning of the murder. Despite the specificity of this identification, the truck has never been found. No registered owner has been publicly connected to the vehicle. It is possible that the truck was stolen, borrowed, or purchased specifically for the crime and later disposed of. It is also possible that the truck belongs to someone who has simply never been identified. The footage of the shooter has been enhanced and analyzed repeatedly. The person's gender remains unknown. Sergio himself told reporters that he believed the shooter was a woman based on how they moved, but he acknowledged he could not be certain. Investigators have never committed to a gender identification. The disguise, whatever it was effective enough to render the person unidentifiable even on camera at relatively close range. The weapon was a revolver, confirmed by investigators in November 2022. No shell casings, no ballistic evidence left behind. The killer clearly understood what they were doing. Liz's father, Bob Newell, has publicly stated his belief that his daughter was the victim of a murder for hire. He does not know who arranged it or who carried it out, but the precision of the operation, the scouting, the timing, the disguise, the weapon choice, the return pass to confirm the kill, all point to a professional or semi-professional execution. Andy Kahan of Crime Stoppers of Houston, who has been closely involved in the case, has echoed this assessment. He noted that the timing was almost impossibly precise. The garage sale had not been widely advertised. Someone inside the couple's circle had to have known what was happening and exactly when Sergio would leave. The operation was, in his words, well planned and well orchestrated, and yet the person who planned it and the person who executed it have both evaded identification for more than 6 years. The online speculation surrounding this case has been relentless. On Reddit, YouTube, and Facebook, thousands of people have dissected the footage frame by frame. Some believe the shooter is female, based on what they perceive as a feminine gait and build. Others believe it is a man wearing a wig to create deliberate confusion about gender, a theory that aligns with the broader evidence of careful planning. A persistent theory holds that someone connected to Sergio, a jealous former partner, a resentful family member, hired the shooter. Another theory suggests a connection through the 501st Legion, perhaps a member who developed an obsession or a grudge over something as seemingly trivial as a costume dispute or event disagreement. None of these theories have been substantiated by evidence. Investigators have looked into all of them. The digital footprint of Liz and Sergio's lives was examined with the kind of thoroughness that leaves no stone unturned. No affairs, no threats, no enemies, no money problems, no secret lives. As just two people who loved each other, loved Star Wars, and were 48 hours away from a trip they had been looking forward to for months. That is what makes this case so difficult. In most homicides, the motive is the thread investigators pull to unravel everything. Here, there is no thread. There is only a dead woman, a doorbell camera, and a black truck that vanished. On February 2nd, 2019, 1 week after the shooting, Liz Barraza's celebration of life was held. Over 100 friends and family members gathered in the front yard of the home on Cedar Walk Drive, the same driveway where she had been shot. Instead of candlelight, the mourners lifted lightsabers and wands to the sky. It was the kind of tribute that would have made Liz laugh and cry at the same time. Sergio addressed the crowd. He said Liz did not deserve this, and he said she deserved to live a long and happy life. He said he was so glad that one of the last things he got to do was kiss her goodbye and tell her he loved her. Through organ donation, Liz saved the lives of 4 people on transplant waiting lists. The donation of her corneas gave another person the gift of sight. Even in death, she was giving. A petition was later created on change.org asking Disney and Lucasfilm to canonize a character named after Liz in the official Star Wars universe, a request that reflected just how deeply her story had resonated with the cosplay and fan communities she had dedicated her life to. Her parents have never stopped fighting. Bob and Rosemary Newell maintain a website, whokilledlizbarraza.com, that tracks the number of days the case has gone unsolved. At the top of the page, a counter ticks forward, and as of now, it reads well over 2,000 days. They have attended every press conference, every anniversary vigil, every media appearance they can. They have worked with Crime Stoppers, the Sheriff's Office, the FBI, and the Texas Rangers. They have spent years of their lives doing the one thing no parent should ever have to do, begging strangers to help them find out who killed their daughter. In January 2025, on the 6th anniversary of Liz's murder, a memorial bench was dedicated in her honor at Burroughs Park in Tomball. The ceremony was organized by the Harris County Precinct Free Commissioner's Office in partnership with Crime Stoppers and the Barraza family. The bench bears the words, "We remember." Sergeant Ritchie, still the lead investigator after all these years, told reporters in early 2025 that the case remains the most frustrating of his career. He said the department continues to pursue new leads, including subpoenas and geofencing data that he cannot yet disclose publicly. He also said something that caught the attention of those following the case closely. He said investigators are now looking at who else might have benefited from Liz's death, a comment that suggested the investigation may be moving beyond the immediate family for the first time in a meaningful way. The reward for information leading to an arrest currently stands at $50,000. It started at $5,000. It was raised to $20,000 through fundraising efforts by Sergio's brother and the Peter Mayhew Foundation. Crime Stoppers increased it to $50,000 in January 2022. That money remains unclaimed. And there is a particular cruelty to this case that separates it from so many others. Liz Barraza was not killed in a dark alley. She was not killed in a place associated with danger or risk. She was killed in her own driveway in the early morning light, doing something as mundane as setting up a garage sale to earn extra money for a vacation with the person she loved. She greeted her killer with warmth. She said good morning because that is what she did. She welcomed people. She smiled at them. She made them feel seen. It is the same instinct that drove her to dress as a stormtrooper and walk hospital corridors, making sick children laugh. It is the same instinct that made her an event coordinator for a charity group, that made her pack her suitcase early because she was too excited to wait, or that made her make funny faces at a doorbell camera because she was simply unguardedly happy. Someone destroyed all of that in 8 seconds, and after more than 6 years, 3,000 days and counting, that someone is still free. If you know anything, if you saw the black Nissan Frontier in the Tomball area in January 2019, if you know someone who was acting strangely around that time, if you have heard someone mention this case in a way that felt wrong, contact Crime Stoppers of Houston at 713-222-8477. You can remain completely anonymous. There is a $50,000 reward. Liz Barraza's father said it best. There is no such thing as a perfect murder. Someone, somewhere, knows what happened, and her family is not going to stop until that person comes forward. If you found this case fascinating, do not forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We post crime case videos every night. Until next time, stay sharp, stay vigilant.